I'm Meredith Mackey. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I own Inspirely Travel, and we are a travel company that is devoted to inspiring people to take the trip. Basically, I opened the agency when my son was diagnosed with leukodystrophy 9 years ago. And you want to close it. And it was mostly because, and as many of you know, when we got that news, when we heard leukodystrophy for the first time, that was like when we decided we were going to take him everywhere. We were going to do all the things and travel the world and make sure that he has a full life of doing as many things as possible in the time that we have him. I'm very lucky. We're one of the lucky families that he's done really well, and he's still doing so well that we're traveling more and more and more. We don't have as much of a time crunch as we did, but we definitely respect families that do and want to help people get out as much as they can while they can, because it is something that I know a lot of families look at. Traveling with a loved one with special needs, and it feels daunting. It feels like something that you absolutely just can't imagine, and that's not the case. There are so many ways to make it happen and make it a reality. So backing up, 9 years ago, I was working for Charleston County Public Schools as a resource teacher. So I have a master's in special ed and I just completely walked away from it. I had been working with children with special needs, and now I had one of my own, and I just couldn't handle all of my students at school and his needs at home. And we were having 40 hours of therapy a week, and I wanted to be there for all of it. So I said, okay, what can I do to kind of combine or be able to stay home and work from home, but also combine this whole goal we have of getting him out there and doing everything that that we can get him to experience. And the natural choice was to open the agency. So that's how Inspirely Travel got the name, inspiring people to take the trip and just make the most out of every day. Because leukodystrophy or not, we may not be here tomorrow. So it's all about getting out and going. I have 3 sons. They are 11, 9, and 4. And my son that's affected is the 9-year-old in the middle. He is deaf, and he wears cochlear implants. So he can hear with those on, but without them, he's completely deaf. With that, we have experienced tons of behavior problems. So where we're not relying on a wheelchair and different feeding tubes and different things that some of our other friends are dealing with, we have major behavior concerns. I mean, the child has no impulse control. Can you imagine when he's 15 what I'm going to do? Because I don't like to think about it at all, like ever. But so that's part of, we've been able to travel with all of these different things in mind and try to think of ways and discover ways that we can make it enjoyable for the entire family, my other 2 sons and my husband included, and not just all centered around Graham all the time. So in 2019, I did this presentation last time at this conference, and a lot of people had questions of things that I didn't even know about, like I hadn't even really thought to know about yet. And so with that in mind, I did make this slide just because this was the one question that got me big time. And it's a lot of information on there that I just put it up in case people needed to, wanted to write anything down, but it's stuff that obviously when you're flying with a wheelchair, you want to notify the airline and let them know that you're coming and try to, find out that they have the access that you need for your chair. The biggest question I got last time I remember, and I was so embarrassed that I didn't know, was about batteries. And can you fly with the wheelchair battery across the ocean? And the answer is maybe, because each airline changes their policy and there's different rules all the time. And some people will let you do it and some people won't. It just all depends on who you're flying with and what kind of craft you're flying on and all of that. So I just had a child last week that flew back from the Caymans, and they could not get her wheelchair on the plane. And we had already discussed this with the airline beforehand, knew it was going to be fine because they were using this 747, whatever the plane was. Well, then that flight was canceled. That plane never came. So another one had to take them. And this time, the plane cannot accommodate the chair. So these people had to pick up their 11-year-old daughter, carry her onto the plane, and she can't sit up without the chair. So she had to sit in their laps the entire flight back. And the chair had to go under the plane. And, of course, $125,000 chair, they were very nervous about that. So, we can plan and do all we can beforehand, but obviously there are always going to be things like that come up. So when you do read articles and hear things about the FFA, trying to change the rules about flights and things like that, and aircrafts and what's going to be allowed, definitely tune into that, because they are trying to make it more accessible for people. Trying to build planes in the future that are going to be more accessible. So if anyone in here is flying with a wheelchair, that's definitely what I do. And then I told Keely that I was going to tell one of my secrets, and that's if you have been using AI, like artificial intelligence, you can ask it what the latest is for your particular airline. So like ChatGPT, I'll go on there and say, okay, what are the regulations for American Airlines with a wheelchair? And because it will pull it for today. You can go in and then you can keep asking it more and more questions too. So it's like talking to a person basically that's a computer, and it's pretty reliable for the most part. So, okay. So any questions about wheelchairs from anybody? Mm-mm. Okay. So Disney started out as the bread and butter of our business. We were sending everybody to Disney. Now the company has kind of shifted, and we send people worldwide all over the place. But Disney and other theme parks have made so many, they put so many systems in place for people that are traveling with disabilities, but people have to know about it. You have to know about it and know how to use it. You have to get it once you get there. It's not something that you can plan for in advance. You have to show up at guest services and tell them about your disability and be prepared to explain yourselves, and then they can help you with a disability access service pass. I won't go through all the details unless anyone's going to Disney right now, but just know that things like this are in place, and they're at all parks. So basically, if you're going to any theme park, even Carowinds, well, y'all aren't from the Carolinas, so you don't know, but Carowinds is like a little tiny park, but there are always things like that in place for people with disabilities. So be sure to look into those types of things before you travel. Cruising is hot right now. Cruising is the thing. And I think obviously, like after pandemic, we couldn't cruise for so long. And now that it's back open and in full swing, it is probably my favorite destination vacation for people with disabilities. It's so easy. It is the easiest way to travel. And there are so many companies that are cropping up, like Disabilities at Sea, different things like that, where you can rent all kinds of equipment, anything that you need to have on the ship. Whether you need, assistance with getting out of bed, all kinds of lifts and different things like that can be brought onto the ship, and cruise lines are wonderful with that, with making the accommodation to get those things on the ship. A lot of ships have all of those things now. Another great thing is there's doctors on board. There is a hospital basically down on deck 2, and you can go down there with anything that you may need. And then I know you may think, well, gosh, cruise ships are so tall, but there's elevators for everything, and everything is wide and open, and all the hallways and corridors, and it's just such a wonderful thing for people with disabilities, but also for families like ours. There's programs on board like Autism at Seas, and they've done really great with having people on board with their crews that are trained to interact with children that have special needs. So for example, with Disney Cruise Line, when we go there, well, everybody knows Graham. I don't know if you've seen him yet. He has white blonde hair. He runs wild. It's sticking up straight everywhere right now. He has the cochlear implant, so that's how you can pick him out. But we get on the ship and they say, oh, Graham Mackey is back. And it's not my other boys, but it's that one. They're like, oh, Graham is here again. And it's because he stands out, but it's also because they have a counselor that works just with him. There's someone, I'm able to leave him and go to dinner and go do these things or go get a massage at the spa because I feel so confident that they have someone that does know about him and has taken time to learn about what he needs and his quirks and different things like that so that I can go and do these things. Because how many vacations, I mean, even at home, when can you really trust a babysitter with your Leuko kid? You don't know what they know, and if they know everything that you need, just there's so many different things that it's hard, but outside of grandparents, to find someone that can actually, care for them. So it's so wonderful to have a vacation option like this where the people on board, the staff are definitely prepared. Okay. Questions on cruising? They can, yes. So we can actually, well, most cruise ships can do that, especially the older cruise ships, the older brands, like Celebrity, not to say that's for old people, or like Viking cruises. Some of the ones that are Princess, a little more senior, senior driven by an older crowd, they always have that kind of stuff. But others can have that brought on board. We I love getting the handicap accessible rooms because they're so big. And then you've got extra space. Oops. I hear myself in here now. Is that okay? I'm hearing myself talking out of the computer. Oh, he said I just unmuted it. Have I been muted this whole time? So she just muted me back. Okay. I think so. So I was talking into it for nothing. I don't like it on. No one likes the way their voice sounds in recordings or videos. That is the one thing about all these vacation videos. When I look back, and the memories are great, and we definitely pulled them up yesterday in the Uber from the airport for Graham. The videos of him here when he was 5 in 2019, dancing and being ridiculous and jumping all over the place and having tantrums and all of that. And I hear my voice, and I'm like, oh gosh, is that really how I sound? I hope not. So this is it's just a little bit difficult for me. But where were we? Cruising. You asked about the beds and different things like that. So and the larger rooms are amazing. Sometimes I don't need all that space, but I feel so luxurious in there. We have Sam Buck's family. Have you seen her since we've been here? She's here. I thought so. I haven't seen her yet, but they're cruising. I don't think she'd mind me telling you, but they're cruising with Sam at the end of August, and we have that major, awesome room for them. And I'm so excited that, we connected through the foundation and have been able to, stay in contact all these years. And now they're, going on the Disney cruise with us helping, and we're just going to make it the most amazing thing in the world for Sam, just because we already know how to do all of that. So even if it's not Inspirely Travel, I urge you and to encourage your family and friends to use an agency that does specialize in this type of travel, because we know we've been. So questions, like anything y'all want to talk about, anything you want to ask me about? Okay, well, I hope I have answers. But if I don't, I'll go on the chat, the AI, and we'll. Okay. Right. Right. Absolutely. You are. And I mean, all of those things can be brought onto the boat. And if it's things that you're able to travel without, to make it easier for you to get there, if by having the equipment that she needs already on the ship, or, coming on the ship with you from a rental company, or, something that the ship already provides, if it's easier for you to do that, I mean, that makes it easier to fly. For instance, if you're able to have all the things, already there, then that's something that absolutely can be done. Just like you said, with the hospital beds, I mean, the lift, any kind of thing that you may need can be brought to the ship. As far as that, where do you live? Ohio. Okay. Well, lots of people drive to Florida from Ohio, I know. In South Carolina, we have a hashtag, and there's on bumper stickers, and it's called, this is so mean, but it's "Go Back to Ohio." Because you're clogging up our roads. So I would prefer that you flew. But I know that a lot of people do that. And I know that that is a limitation for lots of families, that especially as these chairs get larger and larger and larger, and what you need to have. I do know people that often charter planes. And I know that can get very expensive, but there are companies that they do this for special needs families through donations. So it doesn't have to be a once in a lifetime trip. It's something that I can set you up with that company, and we can see what they're doing as far as in Ohio right now. I have a friend that it's my only other Leuko family in Charleston, in South Carolina, that I know of. And they live about 40 minutes from us, which is crazy. Didn't know her before. We got hooked up by the hospital. But they go to CHOP all the time, and from Charleston, and they take a private plane, and it's all paid for by donations. So there are companies like that. There are options to get people that need that extra space to get there. And then cruising too, I guess Florida would probably still be your best bet, but cruises leave from all over the place. So I try to find a destination, a port that's as close as possible if you do need to make the drive. Now I get it as far as like packing all the things, because I'm a terrible flyer when it comes to packing, because I want to pack all the things. I drive a Suburban, and I also have a tray on the back of it, that goes in the trailer hitch, and it's full. And it's just because I want to throw everything in. So I'll drive as much as I can, because I don't want to be limited on the things that I can take. And I don't like to be told when I'm going and when I'm not, because yesterday, we didn't get here until last night, right before dinner. We made it just in time, but we left Charleston at 4 p.m. on Thursday. And we landed in Chicago at 4 p.m. on Friday. So 24 hours of travel. Supposed to be a 2-hour flight, and after cancellations and different things like that, I thought I could have driven there by now. And you're at their mercy. So we're having more and more issues with airlines right now. Not special needs related at all, but just with our new world. Yes, our new world is definitely is challenging for air travel right now. Cancellations and shortages of everything. That it is something that you don't think about when you're traveling for business or something, and it seems so easy. I love going to an airport by myself now. I don't mind how many delays I get. I'm going to sit right there. Nobody's bothering me. I'm traveling light. But when I have his chair and everything else with me, so he has a little stroller chair. You might have seen him in it last night. Mostly just he is still hypotonic, and still does his physical therapy and all of that, and he gets very tired, and he's also very slow. He walks a mile behind me when he's pulling his suitcase through the airport. I'm like, please just get in the chair. We're in Chicago now. Someone's going to take you. We're not in Charleston anymore. Please just get in the chair so I can control you and push you. But we got on the first plane we were supposed to get on Thursday night, kept getting delayed. Finally at midnight, they let us get on. And they even let us get on in first class. And I was so excited. They folded the chair. They put it away. We got pulled out to the runway. And then they said, never mind. Our pilot just timed out. He doesn't have enough hours left in this day, on his flight day. We've got to pull back. And we were like, what? People were so upset. And I get it. There was loud complaining all over the place. And I thought, good grief. They let my child with this chair get all the way unpacked and get on here with all of his stuff. And we've got everything in place. And now they're going to take us off this plane. And so you think about it more so, so thinking about this presentation, obviously thinking about the challenges that my clients face, and I'm thinking, gosh, if this had been someone with a larger chair, and just how frustrating that is, and how that does make people worry about traveling and have anxieties about going and taking the trip. And I wish there was a solution for that. I wish there was something I knew, a magic trick that I knew to making all of that more of an easy process. But I can help more so with the destination, as far as making sure that all the accommodations are made when you get there. And we have good relationships with all of these companies, all cruise lines, and calling in and letting them know these things are happening and that we have a special client, coming on board. That's one thing. But me being on the inside and having a representative that, I say she works for me. I like to say that, that they work for me. One little boy recently asked my 4-year-old at school, "Oh, your mama works for Disney?" And he said, "No, Disney works for my mom." And I'm like, "That's exactly right. You remember that." But they are my representatives. These people that work for those companies are representatives of me. They're my sales rep, basically, but they're powerful. So if I were just to call up the regular line and get somebody that's halfway around the world in a call center and try to add on special things for my son, I might not get, or for a client, I might not get that taken care of. But going through an agency, going through someone like me who has these relationships with the cruise lines and with the destinations, I at least get an inside word, a foot in the door, where I can get it done a little bit easier and assure that it is done and taken care of. So that's why I do urge you, even if it's not Inspirely, to work with an agency that has that kind of relationships with destinations. What's next? You had lots of questions. Oh.
I had a few questions.
I'm sorry.
I have a few questions related to wheelchairs and traveling through the airports. First question, as far as the wheelchair, when you're going to the airport, do you have to break it down before they put it under the airplane, or do they usually keep it intact?
So, good question, and that will depend on the aircraft. And I hate having to give you that answer. I hate that that's what it is, but it will depend on what the airline, which airline, obviously, what their policy is on that given day, and which aircraft you'll be getting on. So you know how sometimes you get on a plane that has two seats. Sometimes there's seats in the middle and three. It just depends on the craft that you're getting on. That's the main thing with that. Now, usually we can call ahead and find out information like that. You'll look on your boarding pass if you flew to get here this weekend. You'll see that it says Boeing 747. It says on there. Now, is it a 2019 model or is it a 2002? I don't know, and I'm not sure what it's going to have cloth or leather seats. I don't know, but those type of things determine what's going to make sure that you can get your chair on there, whether or not you're going to have to break it down or not. What I would say and what I try to do too is get there early, obviously, but go and visit the gate before everybody's up there trying to make changes to their flight. Because you get to priority boarding anyway. You get to go to the front of the line and get on the plane first. And I really do like that, because one of the things that gives me anxiety is that, especially when we're traveling, all 5 of us, flew to California twice this year, and just getting all of us on the plane and Graham and all of his things and getting him situated gives me so much anxiety, because people are like waiting, or, people are like breathing down your neck. You know how skinny that aisle is, and gosh, even yesterday, Graham's bebopping his suitcase down the aisle, banging into everything, and then people are like, "Oh, come on, kid." And this is like getting off the plane, and everybody's like trying to make a connection, and I'm like, "Please pick the bag up. Please pick the bag up." And he won't. Now people behind me are like, "Oh my gosh," But the nice thing is that, so usually I sit on the plane. I was trying to make a connection too, though. But normally I will sit and wait till everybody's off, so I don't have to rush off. Same thing with getting on. I will get on first and take advantage of that ability to have that priority access, so that I have time to get everything on. With doing that, with showing up early and doing all of those things, that means that you're not having to make a split decision on, okay, I got to hustle up and break all this down really fast because they've got to put it under the plane. I will say that I have found that people at the end of the, what's the thing called? The arm, right before you get on the plane. Mm-hmm. Is it called tarmac? Yeah, I know. I'm always thought that is, I think that's the word. Yeah. Those guys there are usually pretty knowledgeable, because you think about how many chairs they see all the time. So they usually do have good advice on the best way to handle it, and the best way to make the chair, because they want their job to be easy too. So they would like to take it down in as few pieces as possible as well. So that's definitely something that's a concern. I did have some clients one time flew from Texas and got to Orlando to Disney, and their wheelchair wasn't on board. And, they had trusted it with I said that to Bob yesterday. We got off. When we left it Bob's my husband, sorry. When we got to the end of the tarmac, I looked down in the stroller the wheelchair had 2 tickets on it, one from Charleston, one for Chicago. And I said, rip that Charleston one off. I don't want it going back to Charleston. And he said, okay, well, this is the plane though. They're not going to take it over. And I said, but you never know. I said, you never know. We can't be too careful. I don't want to, cannot be walking around Chicago tomorrow without that chair. No. That's, I wish I had like a better answer that could tell you definitively like what is going to be expected. But I don't. And I know that it's different with air travel because it is so scheduled that it's not to say like, oh, well, we just get on the next flight. That doesn't really work that way. But I know that they do try their best not to have many complications with that type of thing. Okay, what's the next one?
And then as a follow-up, it might be the same answer, and depend on the airline, but when you're traveling and you have a connecting flight, at the connecting airport, are you able to get the wheelchair back out to get to your next gate?
So it depends on your need. So if it's a chair that is, that the child or whoever absolutely must have, that, that serves some other purpose besides just a push chair like Graham's is, then yes, you can absolutely get it out. They usually will bring someone who brings their wheelchair on board. You usually find it when you come off of the plane. It's usually going to be right there. Otherwise, they do have that service where someone will pick you up in the airport and take you with their wheelchair. You see people speeding through. You can pay for that without a disability, just so you know. If you're in a real hurry and you don't feel like walking. Or you'll see people that the airport itself will have those golf carts, and different things like that to pick people up. 9 times out of 10, your chair is going to be there waiting unless you have requested for it to transfer without you. Okay. Most people don't want to do that though, especially with they want to have their chair, but also it's peace of mind that your chair made it. I didn't check any bags yesterday, but every time I got on the flight, I got notification on my American app that my 2 bags had made it onto the plane. Well, that's interesting because I didn't check any bags, so I don't know whose bags they were telling me. So there's just all of these things, I'd rather have my eyes on it than trust them to get it from one plane to another. Yeah, but it's one of those things you just have to. That's one of the crosses I guess we have to bear is being there early and being there to be able to advocate for what needs we need to be met. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, I guess first question for perhaps people that just are completely not in the know, but as a travel agent, what all can you do for your clients? Is it just your airline travel? Are you just booking hotels? What about special experiences? What kind of questions should people be asking their travel agent in order to make the most out of their vacation?
That's a good one. So I almost never book air, actually. My insurance doesn't cover me for that, one reason. But I can, usually my clients can find a better deal on air booking directly with the airline. And that's what I want for them to have. So I will help them with calling into the airline and making sure that these accommodations can be made for what they need. But as far as actually booking air, that is such a tiny piece of what we do. We'll help you find flights, and then you just book them on your own. So many people have points and different things like that works out better for them. Also, when I sell air, it comes through a package with a supplier, and that's usually more expensive. So I don't like to do that. With that being said, still help you with those pieces of all that stuff we just talked about. We're more so about the destination, as I've said before. The resorts, calling in and making sure that you've got the right room and whatever you may need. It's funny because even people with sleep apnea, they need water. A jug of water when they get to their stateroom on the cruise. They're going to have that because they have to pour it in the machine for it to work. Things like that. And it's things that things that that you're going to need. And basically, as long as you communicate that these needs to your travel agent, we can make those things happen. So that's the biggest thing is sometimes people don't, I don't know your specific situation, so everything that you need is not something that comes to my mind right away. But letting me know those things means that you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to have all those things done when you get there. You may not know where to get a certain lift or piece of equipment that you need, but I do. So I will call ahead and get it. You just got to let me know that that's what you need. As far as special experiences, there are so many companies that really are trying to become more handicap accessible and friendly with the tours and things that they offer. I know that we're living in a time of inclusion right now. Everybody is preaching about inclusion in all different areas of our society, and definitely handicap is a huge part of that. And so people are really trying to be inclusive of individuals that have those special needs. Now, as far as like knowing which companies to use, absolutely, we know from experience. If it's a destination that I've never been, I don't know anything about Croatia. I got a Croatia one this past week, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know anything about Croatia, but just looking it up and doing that research and then calling on the guy that I've been using for Caribbean islands for different medical things and saying, hey, you know what a company like any companies like yours in Croatia? And just saying, yeah, I know a guy, so it just kind of turns into this whole network of, knowing who to ask to find out all of these different pieces. Because there are so many tours and things like that are limited, that you would not be able to take your chair on the Skyline ride up to Megan's Bay, like things like that. And, in the Caribbean, you wouldn't be able to put that on there, but there are other, opportunities. How old is your daughter? 22. Okay. So you probably would be taking her with you. For me, that's when I try to find things that when I don't have to take him with me, that's where I'm still having my getaway because I know that he's accounted for. But there may be things where she doesn't want to be with you and you can go in and do these things and we can find something separate for her to do, that's better suited for her. One thing that we talked about in 2019, and then of course 2020 happened, and we didn't ever do anything with it. We talked about a leukodystrophy group cruise, booking a big giant block of space, and it being like our conference. We already nailed down a conference space because this was 3 years, right? And this is year 3. Maybe we do it at sea next year, because actually, I'll tell you, one of my very first Royal Caribbean cruises as a travel agent, I went on a seminar at sea, is what they call it, and it was also a buddy cruise. And I don't know if you know what that is, but that's the Down Syndrome Network. That's what they call them, the buddy group or whatever, but they call it the buddy cruise. It was huge. And I could not believe how amazing the turnout. And even people, the teenagers, with Down syndrome on the elevators, just met all these other kids from all over the country that also, have that disability, and they're all friends and like traveling around in a pack. And I thought, how neat is this? And then while the parents are doing their breakout sessions and all of that stuff in the conference rooms, I thought, wow, this would be something really fun for us, even if it wasn't for the conference. But, just as a time to be all around people that know what you're going through. That would be super easy to get all the equipment on that cruise because we would just hire them to bring everything on board. Bring it all. We might need it. So definitely, we can find things like that are more geared towards people with special needs. And then, of course, like I said, with the Disney thing, we know what the rules are as far as getting the disability passes, and that's something that you don't have to worry about researching and all of that, because we'll tell you exactly how to do it. I use a giant wagon at Disney World. They're not allowed at Disney World, so people love to call me out. Wait, let me see if there's a picture. Sometimes people are mean. Here's me. The first picture is me momming it hard. This was my last trip. This was Mother's Day. And where's my husband? He was at the golf course back in Charleston. But that's us at Animal Kingdom. My friend took this picture of me. But, you know, a lot of times you would think that Graham could let his younger brother ride in the 4-person wagon with him. But no, there's too much fighting. So that's why I had to put him on my back. But, you know, that stroller's not allowed. And people all day long stare at me. Oh, how'd you get that in here? How did you do that? And it's because I knew the rules. And the rules are that because my son has a disability, I can stop at guest service, get a tag for it. I don't know if you can see that little blue and red tag right there. That they mean that this is a person with a disability, and that the blue tag means that we are using this stroller that's outlawed at Disney as a wheelchair. And so it has access to all of those areas within the parks. It's able to roll onto the buses. Everybody else has to break their stroller down, or, you know, to get on a boat, any transportation. It's able to stay up, and he's able to stay in it, because I'll tell you, most of the time that see how he's sitting on that little bench in there, he goes underneath those seats and takes his cochlears off and has his quiet time and his moments in there. People don't even realize he's in there. They think I'm pushing this empty wagon around. And I say, you know, I'm not doing this for fun, people. It is not. It's 90 degrees, and I'm not really enjoying the pushing, you know, this 80-pound child in there, and then an 80-pound wagon. But it is necessary evil. And I do, you know, love that we know how to do it. You know, because otherwise you may get there and they say, oh, sorry, we don't allow wagons, and you turn around and leave and you can't use it. But there is a way. There are exceptions. But obviously that's knowing how to speak up and do all those things. This other picture I just put on here because that's basically my life traveling with Graham. That is that's at Animal Kingdom in the dinosaur area. That's a boneyard, a place for him. You kids can go and dig, and little paintbrushes and all of that. And when he was a baby, he would sit in there for hours, which I don't mind, because there's a place to get a beer right beside it, and you can bring it in there, and it's shaded, and there's fans blowing, and sit there as long as you want. And he would just, you know, brush and, you know, play with all these sensory things, and that's obviously a huge part of his life, is the ultimate sensory experience. But this was in May, just, you know, a month ago, and he put his whole face. I mean, if I had let this continue, we would have gotten all the way under probably. But he and everybody's looking at him, and I'm like, just you do you, babe. I'm gonna sit over here, you know. But there's so I really feel like with traveling with him and helping other families, it really is so much about just letting it happen the way it's going to happen for your family, making sure that you're happy and that they're happy and they're experiencing something new. You let them put their face in this. I mean, he had sand in his ears forever. His actual ears, not his, we call his cochlears his ears too. So, but I was like, don't lose your ears in there. Please don't lose your ears. I'm like, Graham, put your ear back on. These other people are like, what is she talking about? But, you know, it is definitely, I don't think that if I were not experienced, I think that if I hadn't had this life with this child and all of these experiences that we've had, that I would be able to stand something like this. You know, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But, you know, we have had so many experiences, and we do know which things to stress out about and which things not to stress out about. And I think that's something hugely valuable that we take and bring to our clients, is when to sweat and when not to sweat. And let us handle these things that we can do behind the scenes to make your travel easier. Oh, we got a couple minutes.
Anybody else? I was going to say, I have one more. So in terms of if you were going to suggest a vacation destination for a leukodystrophy family, what would you say are, you know, the top place or the top places that would be most wheelchair friendly, most accommodating, if someone is looking to book a vacation where they can truly just trust that everything is going to be easy and taken care of, quote unquote.
Right. Uh-huh.
What would your suggested destination be?
Well, it would depend on the age, obviously. So with, I mean, if you've got a young child, then everybody's got to do Disney at some point. And Disney is very good with disabilities. So that is one that I know, you know, I have people that have food allergies that are the craziest food allergy you've ever heard, something like a purple tree nut that only grows in the Amazon, and there might be one somewhere, and that would be detrimental to this child, So they come to me with these type of things, and Disney says, "Oh my goodness, well let us just bend over backwards." They make sure that the chef comes out and speaks to you before every meal. They'll sanitize the entire room just in case there was one of those purple nuts in there at some point in the history of that room, and so they definitely are a place that understands disabilities and has made it very easy for families, for young families to travel. Also, for people like me with meltdowns, everybody's kid's having a meltdown. So, you kind of blend in there a little bit. So there's ways that is the most ideal vacation for someone with young children. Now, like I said before, cruising is hot right now. It's really, really awesome. And they keep coming out with bigger and better ships all the time. And with these new ships, they have thought of all of these things, all the things that we need, the accommodations that are going to make it better for us. I love that, like I said, with the child care piece, that I know that I can put him in there and that I can actually get a break. So it also is a vacation for me too, not just for him. Even though he, and he's loving it, he's having fun, he's, making friends and running around and causing all kinds of trouble, but it's the staff that's on there is qualified. And then, of course, with that, like I said, with the medical facility on board, too, that's always a huge peace of mind for anybody with a special needs child traveling. So I think cruising is easily the easiest right now, and the most accommodating, but not to say that, there aren't other places that can do that. Traveling abroad right now is harder, and it's, after COVID, we lost a lot of tour companies. A lot of companies have been wiped out, and there's not as many choices. Airfare is out of control right now. Like the pricing to fly overseas is nuts. I saw a great deal on a cruise out of Barcelona for me and the kids and Bob for this summer, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! I got to do this. I can't afford not to do this." And then I priced the flights for $15,000. I was like, "Oh my gosh, no, we can't. Just the flights alone." I was like, "Oh, that's it." So there's a lot of things like that are making those destinations a little bit harder right now. But I mean, if you can fly or drive to a cruise port and get on a ship and leave all your worries behind, then that's the best thing for right now, I think.
Questions? Thank you so much, Meredith, and thank you everyone that have joined us this morning.